Hi Year 4, this is Purple Group Maths and this is the video for all of your week 6 learning. So once you've watched day 1, just make sure you pause the video before you go on to day 2. So day 1 you are finding equivalent fractions. Now equivalent means the same or equal, so you're finding fractions that are exactly the same as each other. So let's go through an example then. Below is a bar. 1 part out of 4 or 1/4 of the bar is shaded. So if I get my highlighter, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts all together. That's my denominator, okay? And only 1 part has been shaded, okay? That's my numerator, okay? So moving on then. Can we get more parts from the same amount? So if we have a little look, we've got exactly the same amount that's been shaded in both our bars, but we've actually got more parts. We've got 2 parts. 1, 2 instead of 1 part. So that's the same as 2/8 because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts altogether, which is your denominator, and only 2 have been shaded, so that's your numerator. So 2/8 is equivalent or the same as 1/4. So for your first task today, you need to complete these diagrams. So in A, we've got 1 bar at the top, which represents a whole, okay? And underneath that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts with 1 part that's been shaded, okay? And that is 1/4. So if I just rub those ones out quickly, you will see that you've already been given a quarter, so that's a quarter. So what we need to work out is the second bar below that, so it's the 8ths. Now, if we count the amount of parts all together, we know that's our denominator. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's our denominator. And then how many parts have been shaded? We've got 1, 2 parts have been shaded. So that's 2/8. Okay, so that's my answer. So 1/4 is equivalent to 2/8. Okay, let's go through one more together. So we need to look at the diagram and fill in the blanks. So again, we've got 1 whole at the top. Okay, and then underneath we've got 1/3. So 1 whole is equivalent to how many thirds? So what you need to do for this is you need to look at the first number, which is a whole or fraction, and then we need to find the line on the diagram that represents this. So a whole is going to be this much because it's the whole bar. So follow the line down and see which fractions are equivalent. So 1 whole is equivalent to 1, 2, 3/3, okay? So 3/3. Now, moving on to the second part, we've got 2/3 is equivalent to how many sixths? So we need to find what line represents 2/3, which is here, because you've got 1, 2/3, okay? And then how many sixths is that? Let's get a different colour. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sixths until we get to the line. So 2/3 is equivalent to 4 sixths, okay? Moving on to day 2, and we're carrying on with equivalent fractions. So today we're using a similar technique to what we did yesterday, and we need to fill in the missing numerators. So if we look at our first fraction, I'm going to circle it, we've got 1/3. So we need to find the bar that's split into 3 parts, which is the top one, and we need to shade 1/3. Okay, so that's a third shaded. So then we need to follow the line down to see which fractions are equivalent. So if we get a line that shows a third and we follow it down, how many sixths is that? So let's colour in the sixths. 1, 2 sixths. Okay, so 1/3 is equivalent to 2 sixths. Now, here's a reasoning and problem solving question. So it says, explain how the diagram shows both 2/3 and 4/6. So you need to write and explain how it shows that. I'm just going to give you one little clue. So let's split it into thirds. Okay, so if I got a different colour, if I get green, we've got 1/3, 2/3, okay? Now I can also split it into 6. So in this case, if I get my colour again, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Okay, so how does it show both 2/3 and 4/6? Moving on to day 3 learning. So today you're going to be finding more equivalent fractions, but we're going to be using our times tables knowledge to help us to do this. And I'm going to show you a method to work this out. So we're going to be using our steps to success. So we first need to look at the denominators. We've got 2 and 4. What do you multiply the first denominator by to make the second denominator? So basically 2 times what is 4? Now we know that 2 times 2 is 4, okay? And if you've times the denominators by 2, you have to do the exact same thing to the top numbers. So we then have to do 1 times 2 as well, and 1 times 2 is 2. So that means that 1/2 is equivalent to 2/4. Let's go through one more example. We're going to do the exact same thing again. So we're going to look at our denominators. We've got a 3 and we've got a 9. What do you multiply the first denominator by to make the second denominator? So 3 times 3 is 9. If you multiply the denominators by 9, you need to do the same thing to the numerators. So we need to do 1 times 3 is 3, okay? So day 4, we're going over some skills we've already been doing, and we're finding more equivalent fractions using our times tables. So I'm just going to go through. So let's look at our fractions. We've got 3/4 is equivalent to how many eighths? So again, you know the steps. The first thing we need to do is look at our denominators. We've got 4 and 8. What do you multiply 4 by to get to 8? 4 times 2 is 8. Okay, so if we've times the denominators by 2, we need to do the same thing to the numerator. So then 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, and that's how you work that one out.